I'm Brian Stewartly, and I got my job back. Welcome to CNN. In anticipation of the Montreal World Health Organization conference taking place this week, we're speaking with our expert on economic immigration, Edgar Williams, from the think tank American Progress. Mr. Williams, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
The most recent news coming out of the Sudan is that hostilities have quieted in the last few months and the refugee situation has been improving.
Well, there has definitely been progress, but I would caution against being overly optimistic in this situation. There's still roughly 2 million people in camps, and people returning home are finding they're having to start from scratch when they return.
Some have criticized the lack of military intervention over the years as the conflict has raged on. Do you think the president made a mistake by not committing military presence to Central Africa?
Well, it's a complicated situation on the ground there, and I think recent developments have shown that it may have been the right decision. All the same, I think what you're seeing now is that some of these refugee camps may become the sort of permanent slum cities that populate many parts of Africa. Many of the people in these camps have become dependent on the services provided, and many may not receive these same services were they to return to their villages.
So how should the international community proceed in trying to bring these people back to their villages, many of which have been devastated?
The simple answer is, I'm not sure. It will ultimately be up to whatever government forms in the country to meet the needs of the population. In any case, it's obvious that there's still a lot of residual anger over the atrocities committed over the years, and government that comes in will have to deal with that anger if there's going to be any progress.
Some experts have suggested that the ouster of Colonel Gaddafi had a measurable effect on the diminished violence in the region, as he was a prolific arms supporter of the Janjaweed militia groups. Does this situation justify President Obama's decision to provide military aid to the opposition in Libya?
Well, I think there will always be some in this country who feel that Obama did not lead the initiative in the way that an American leader should, leading from behind and all that. However, it's obvious that getting rid of Gaddafi has had an effect in areas like the Sudan, and I'm sure will be ammunition for the president to seek to depose any other regimes that support terrorist groups. Particularly with the increasingly heated rhetoric towards Iran, it's easy to see how the White House could make the case that deposing any authoritarian leaders providing aid to the terrorist group should be removed, even by military intervention.
Do you think it would be perhaps a wiser course of action to let the NGOs and other third parties do some of the heavy lifting in the recovery work in this region?
Well, the problem is that for a long time within Sudan itself, NGOs have not exactly been welcomed by the government. Even in the past year, at least 6 NGOs have had to leave the area, either due to lack of funds or the increasingly volatile nature of the environment they were working in. Some have since been trickling back into the region since the violence has somewhat abated, but it's still a steep hill to climb to convince a lot of these organizations that the situation is stable enough to return. Things aren't all bad though. The decreased violence has allowed governments to focus more of their aid money on essential services rather than military aid.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Williams.
Anytime, Brian.
Be sure to let us know how you feel about this issue on Twitter. Follow our coverage at the conference. I'm Brian Stewartly.